and we will now move on to another informative presentation from one of your colleagues, from Patrick Crumlish. And if you'll just bear with me for a second, I will get Paddy onto the screen. Now, Paddy, whenever you're ready, you can bring up your presentation.
Okay, 2 secs. What are you seeing there?
If you go to slideshow, you should be able to give us full screen.
No, 2 secs, 2 secs.
Now, there you are.
Okay. All right, perfect. So just going to, some of this stuff will have been covered by Ruth and Noreen, so I won't labor it too much, but just to go through some of the certification issues that we've been seeing, and also notes on the completion of the schedules. We've been dealing with schedules for composite products since January 1st, and there are various issues that we've had, and the schedule format will we want to try and streamline it to make sure that we've only got all the necessary information that's in there and not anything that's extraneous. The legislative basis for all this, Ruth has already covered. Particularly what I'll be talking about is the Chapter 50 health certificate, which is in this Regulation 2235. As Ruth said, for products that currently require certification, their certificate under Regulation 28/2012 will still be allowable up until October. So the schedule slightly differs between 2012 and the new 2020 cert, and I'll go through those step by step as well. So to date now, the schedules have been used for large consignments. So for additional information that doesn't fit onto the model health certificate, and this is as per the DAFM and DEFRA guidance that we've given. But unfortunately, there have been recurring issues that have been coming up that have led to delays in processing of these consignments. And some of the more common ones would be items that not requiring certification would be included on the schedule. Items included that are not on the load, and vice versa, items on the load when we actually perform identity checks that are not included on the schedule, and that obviously leads to delays in processing until we can sort that out with the operator responsible for the consignment, the RFC. These schedules tend to be quite large as well, and we would end up with schedules of 30 and in some instances 70 pages of information that can be very hard for us to verify, and in some instances it would appear to have consignments that are amalgamated, and there'd be different formats of the schedules as well on one certificate, and that can be quite challenging for us to be able to verify that information. And further compounding that, sometimes the font can be illegible, and particularly worrisome will be that there will be pages missing from it. We could have a schedule that is listed as having 30 pages of information, and we may only have 25, 26 pages, or obviously a number will be missing, and in that instance can be quite challenging for us to verify that information. So just Noreen has covered some of the issues with regards to sheds and just tips for how to complete them, and these are again some of the difficulties and the issues that we've seen. So box I1 and box I5 on the health cert, the consigner and the consignee, the details included here, as Noreen said, must correspond between the shed and the EHC, the health certificate, and this hasn't always been the case in consignments to date. Sometimes the consignee address will be different to maybe the same company, but it will not be going to the same address on the health cert as it is on the shed, and those details must correspond. The certificate reference number must be unique, and again, it must correspond with that is entered on the shed. And again, unfortunately, we haven't always seen that. We touched on the means of transport, what is entered in box I15. So not many of those will be low containers. If it is a low container, the vessel details should be entered here. For row containers, we would advise indicating the vehicle number and the trailer number here, because the shed is going to be populated from the details that are on the health cert, and the RC, when completing the shed, will then enter road vehicle as the means of transport and use the trailer details as container number in that box of the shed. And what this will allow the RFC to actually then populate the relevant box on the shed, because for row shipments, the trailer number or vehicle number is entered here on the shed. And if they've entered the vessel as the means of transport on the shed, then containers and trailers in Lolo usually come in this format where it's 4 X's, sorry, XXX, and then 7 digits after that in alphanumeric code. And if a vessel is entered as the means of transport, the RFC is unable to enter for the trailer and container if it's a row shipment those numbers properly in the shed, because the shed automatically deduces from the vessel being entered as a means of transport that the container format is going to be like this. So that's what we would advise, is just to not enter the vessel details on the shed, and if the details are not entered on the health cert, then the RFC is more likely to enter the correct information. Box I-26, total net weight and gross weight. This is a recurring issue where either one weight is entered, neither are entered, or at times the C schedule is simply written here. And this isn't really acceptable, because the C schedule is written on the health cert, and particularly if you've got a schedule that is going to be multiple pages long, there are several times when those weights are not entered onto the schedule in total, and it can take quite a lot of time for us to perform the calculations to ascertain whether those net weights and gross weights do match with what's on the shed. And it's obviously critical that those weights do correspond between the two of those. And if that weight is not entered, those weights are not entered in a user-friendly fashion on the health certificate, that again leads to delays in the processing. So it is important that those weights are entered there and nowhere else. It's not acceptable to have them on the schedule. So one of the changes in the new health certificates coming out is box I-27 is going to have amalgamate some of the information that's on the current certificate, the 2012 certificate. So it's going to have the CN code now in it, whereas previously that was in box I-18. So the species is here. The type of product is going to be listed here. So the certificate obviously relates to dairy, meat, egg, and fishery, or a combination of two or more. If you've got something like this pepperoni pizza here that is going to have processed dairy and it's going to have processed meat as well, put that down as a dairy/meat product. It shouldn't be entered separately as a dairy product and then as a meat product. What we're interested in box I-27 is the finished product, not the individual POAO. That comes later on in the attestations. And part 2 of the certificate is where we're interested in that. The type of treatment, the identification mark, and the approval number of establishments where applicable. As has been stated previously, the approval number is needed if there's any further processing of the product of animal origin occurring at the establishment where the composite product is assembled, but obviously only needs to be registered if it's only sampling and there's no further processing. The number of packages, the type of packaging, which is going to be cardboard, etc., the batch number, the net weight, and then the oldest date of collection or production of the composite product needs to be listed there as well. And just to briefly just mention one thing that we have encountered. So with trade where the composite products are produced in the UK and then exported directly to Ireland, the country of origin is the UK. In I-11, the place of dispatch is the production establishment of the composite product, the establishment from where the final consignment is transported to the EU, and the place of loading and description of consignment. The place of loading has been discussed before with regard to the private attestation, and it's the same for the products requiring certification, and description of consignment, the information that's required previously. Significant amounts of the composite products that are coming into into the Union, into Ireland from the UK, would fall under triangular trade. So this is where the composite product is produced in country A, which could be a member state of the Union or another third country, for instance, the US, and then the warehousing and certifying, it's then imported into the UK, and the UK is the warehousing and more significantly the certifying country for this before it's imported into the EU. So country of origin in these instances should be listed as the UK. We have encountered instances where the country where the composite product has been produced is down as country of origin. For instance, the US has been put down, and that's not appropriate. It should be the UK. The place of dispatch should be the final loading warehouse in the UK, and again, box I-13 and I-27 must be the same. And just to reiterate that the plants where processing of the POAO takes place must be EU approved. So it is important just to ensure that that is the case. So when can the schedule be used? The schedules can be used when there's insufficient space to complete the full details of sections I-27 due to the size of the consignment. So the templates that we'll discuss further should be used in this instance. And other sections of Part 1 really should not be in here. This is not suitable to as I say, the main offender in this historically has been weights, that net weights and gross weights have been put in here, and they should be listed on page 1 of the certificate, and they should not be listed in the schedule. This is the current certificate that we are using under Regulation 28/2012. So we've got the description of the commodity, the HS code, the CN code, and then the identification of the commodities. And just what I want to say here is that the format of the schedule and what I'll show you should follow box I-28. This is the information that we're looking for to be included on the schedule. These 5 pieces of information, and currently the description of commodity and the CN code as well, the manufacturing plant of the composite product, the number of packages, the nature of commodity, dairy, meat, etc., net weight, batch number. That's all that we're looking for here. We don't need further information here because we do encounter schedules where the species is listed here, or the supplier, or other material description, and that is not necessary, and it's information that again just leads to delays in the processing. So it's aiming to streamline this process is what we're looking at. This is the new certificate, and say the format is slightly different. Much of the information is the same. Box I-27 is the new one that we're going to deal with here. You can see there's a separate box for net weight and gross weight. Quantity, as Ruth said, doesn't need to be used here. CN code is now in box I-27. It's not box I-19, and so the description of the consignment, all of this will come into here, and I'll show you a template that we have along with an example involving several products being certified under the same schedule. So information that we have from the Commission is that with regard to the attestations in Part 2 of the certificates, that the choice either or means that there's a need to know which specific guarantee applies to which product. And so that various goods can only be entered in the same certificate if they meet the same guarantees selected in the statements with the options. Now, we believe that the schedule, if properly used and implemented, will allow us to be able to do this, to know which specific guarantee applies to which product, and allow us to have multiple treatments and multiple attestations allowed. But the schedule just has to be filled out properly for us to be able to do that. So the attestations that we're looking for in Part 2 of it, the first section is relating to the BSE attestation. So this relates to products containing, so for meat products, this is in the meat products section. So for products containing material from bovine, ovine, or caprine animals. So it's an attestation that the meat in the products comes from any one country or region with negligible, controlled, or undetermined. So in the schedule example that I'll show you, negligible is N, controlled is C, and undetermined is U. Now, if we have a certificate that has attestations for products coming from negligible and products with a controlled risk status, it is important that if there's nothing no product on the certificate with the BSE risk status of undetermined status, that does need to be struck through. And that is something that we would see with certificates as well, where all the attestations are left open and it is simply written see schedule. That's not appropriate. Any treatments or attestations that do not apply to products listed in the schedule do need to be struck through in part 2 of the certificate, and obviously the OV needs to sign and stamp those sections as well. So the dairy attestations in the new section. So it's non-shelf stable dairy products now, and these will all have to be certified. There were certain instances where products were fully heated through, they didn't need to be certified, but because the basis of the certification has changed and we're looking at risk rather than percentage, any dairy product, any composite product containing dairy product that's not shelf stable will need certification and will need to come in on the certificate. So the milk that can be used, the raw milk, can come from cows, ewes, goats, buffaloes, or camels are listed in the new dromedary camels are listed in the new certificate as well. Most of the dairy product that we're going to see is going to come from here. So the other attestation is for animals other than these, not really going to apply in most instances. Where the either or attestation does come into effect is that there's 6 different treatment options given within this group: pasteurization, UHT, sterilization, and HGST. So there's 6 in total. So if you are certifying products that contain pasteurized milk and contain UHT milk, it can't be done purely on an either or basis in part 2, and this is where the schedule needs to be used in that instance. Processed fishery products from an approved establishment in a named country. Again, if we've got multiple establishments, we can refer to the schedule. Processed egg products from an approved country and the establishment of origin must be free from HPAI, avian influenza, and Newcastle disease for at least 30 days prior to the certification, and must be either in a 10K radius where there's been no outbreak of either of those diseases for at least the previous 30 days, or have been processed for one of 9 acceptable treatments. So if the OV can certify that there hasn't been an outbreak of either of these notifiable diseases in the 30 days prior to certification, it is possible. There's no need for him to specify how those egg products have been treated, as long as, again, all those are struck through and the only section that's left open is relating to this, declaring that there hasn't been an outbreak of either of those diseases. So this is an example of a schedule for part 1 under the existing regulation 28/2012. So box I-18 of part 1 is the description of the commodity, and here we've got 5 examples here: 3 pizzas, a bolognese, and a carbonara. We've got multiple CN codes, so it would be appropriate in part 1 of the schedule to have just written C schedule as for I-18 and for I-19, and then I-28. These are the 5 sections or pieces of information that we're looking for: the manufacturing plant, if necessary, of the composite product, the number of packages, the nature of commodity, and you can see here the ham and pineapple hasn't been divided out. We're looking for the net weight of the finished product, and it's a dairy meat product containing POAO from both of those, and the batch number at the end. So that's 2812. This is the same product, so the same products with this, but it's slightly different what we're looking for here now under the requirements of the new regulation. So the species now needs to be listed here. So bovine, porcine, and the milk is from Bos Taurus. The establishment number, the nature of the commodity again, the type of packaging should be listed here, and the production dates need to be listed here as well. So there is a bit of extra information that needs to be included in this section where this relates to box I-27 of this new regulation, compared with what we're currently looking for under 28/2012. So you can just see there is a little bit of extra information that's needed there. Under the current schedule, this is for the meat products. So this is section 2A of part 2 of the health certificate. If it is not possible to include all the information on part 2 of the health certificate and the OV right to see schedule. This is what we're going to be looking for in that schedule. And this is what allows us to link the product back, the guarantee that we've got here. So N, negligible, C, controlled, U, undetermined with regards to the BSE status. Not applicable, obviously, for anything containing porcine or chicken meat or poultry. For the bovine, it obviously is, and we need to see this here, that we've got the control status is linked here. The origin, the treatment. Again, this is all the information that we need. We don't need to know the supplier. We don't need to know a material description or anything like that. This information is sufficient to be entered and for us to be able to perform our documentary checks. Under the new regulation, the schedule for the 2235, it's under section 3A, and this is the information that's needed. It's really pretty much the same. Again, just to ensure that the products are listed here so that we can link this back to what's included in part 1 of the schedule, any information that's been linked in the schedule related to box I-27, and again, same information, the species, the treatment, the origin, the approved establishment, and the critical part here relating to the, this is what allows us to have multiple attestations. This particular example doesn't have multiple attestations, but if there were something containing beef from a country with a negligible risk status and it was included here, this is what would allow for multiple attestations to be attested to on the schedule. For processed dairy products under the current existing schedule, again, we've got there's 5 points that we need to know here. Again, the name of the product, again, to link it back, the country of origin of the product, the establishment number of the POAO. So this is the establishment number of where the dairy product was produced. And again, this goes without saying that this needs to be EU approved, the production dates of the dairy product, and then the treatment. And so we can see 3 of these products pasteurized, 2 of them subject to HTST, and again, it's having this in that allows us to have multiple attestations on the certificate because we're able to link it back. It is important again, though, that if the OV has written C schedule in 2B of part 2 of the health certificate, they have to ensure that they strike through all the inapplicable heat treatments. And we have encountered instances where there would be multiple attestations referred to in the schedule, but the OV will have only left the attestation in that the milk has been pasteurized. And this can lead to, again, confusion and delay and requesting letters from the OV to clarify the treatments that have been given. So it's really to ensure that the attestations that are attested to in part 2 or part 3 of the health certificate, depending which model you're using, directly line up with what's included in the schedule. Now, it slightly differs. So it's in section 3B is the dairy product attestations of the new regulation. So the country of production and the country of origin both need to be listed here. In most instances, several instances, they will be the same, but it is important just to note that they are looking for this both now. The species is the same, and the production dates here as well. So a little bit more information needs to be included on the dairy product side of things. But this is all. Again, we don't need any extra information listed in the schedule. Any other information beyond this should be in commercial documents, invoices, packing lists, etc. But this is all that we're looking for in the schedule of the health certificates. And as I say, the idea is to streamline everything. Fishery products and processed egg products, there's not really any major difference here, and these don't tend to be too problematic here. If there's multiple fishery products and multiple approval numbers, obviously you can put in extra rows, and the same for anything requiring egg products. The treatment type, if applicable, but if the OV has attested that there hasn't been an outbreak of AI or ND in the 30 days prior, it's not necessary to put in the treatment type, just is necessary to put in that the country of origin is approved. So this doesn't really change for the new legislation. It's really much the same. So the summary is that to ensure that the schedule for part 1, the description of the consignment, that it follows the format of box 28 of chapter 50, that you would be able to read that directly and link everything back up to box I-27 of the chapter 50 certificate. My apologies, box I-28 of the old one, but box I-27 of the new chapter 50 certificate. And for the schedule part 2, one thing just to note, just to take away, just ensure that the product name is included, because this is what allows us to link the products to the guarantees back to those which have been attested to in part 2, and therefore we can have confidence that those guarantees are truly being attested to by the OV. So thanks very much for your attention. Bring up the final slide again that that Noreen has and Ruth have brought up. So any further queries, any further information, we're certainly happy to deal with them. Okay, thank you.